This video is going over a guide to field managing. If you are involved in planning a tournament that has more than one field, they're likely going to need field managers to manage each field. So this is not at your typical tournament. It's often seen at regionals and nationals, but if there is more than one field happening, the tournament director can't be everywhere, so that's when field managers would come in. So maybe you are interested in helping out with planning and executing a tournament, in which case that's great. Thank you for helping out those teams. Or someone might have asked you to do it, so congratulations on being considered a competent adult. So what are your duties? If you are a field manager, it's pretty basic. You are managing the field. So what does this mean? You could be periodically checking in with videographers and scorekeepers if they need help. Try and do this before the game starts, just to plan out and prevent any issues. Immediately submit scorecards to headquarters at the conclusion of the game. Do what you can to ensure games start on time and can continue being played until the game ends. So you're going to be nagging people before the game starts, often 15, 10, 5 minutes before the game starts, just to remind people and check in and say, hey, we're all good to start in 15 minutes. I know the game starts soon. Is there anything that we're missing? Are both teams here? Have you heard of the snitch? Is the snitch on site? Things like that to make sure that there's no delays. And as well, once the game has started, what can you do to make sure that the game can continue being played until it ends? So in the middle of the game, if someone runs into a hoop and breaks it, do you have duct tape to patch it up? Do you have a replacement set of hoops somewhere that you can quickly pull in? You don't want there to be too long of a delay before the game resumes, because this will cause scheduling issues and all the games might not be able to be played in the day if the delays are too long. And finally, alert tournament directors of any issues or potential concerns. So the tournament director cannot be everywhere at once, and even when they are, they might be busy dealing with another issue. They're not paying attention to everything that's happening. So if you see anything that might be causing issues or that might be of concern, it's worth bringing it up. So if you notice certain people in the crowd are being rowdy, or if certain teams are starting to have a bit of a rivalry that could get worse, if equipment seems to be in rough shape, if volunteers are not showing up, anything like that, you need to alert the tournament director of the issue and they will help you with resolving it. So potential additional responsibilities, things that you might be asked to do by the tournament director in addition to managing the field. You could be asked to help set up, check in, and tear down. So you don't necessarily have to do this. This might be extra, but setup could be the morning of or the night before, helping bring in equipment, helping line fields, helping measure things. Check in often the morning of, that they will have the players come to the field and have tables where they can check in, maybe pay a tournament fee, show ID, sign waivers, anything like that, just to help. The more people you have, it can help get through the teams a lot faster. And finally, tear down. So this could be at the end of each day. If it's an outdoor venue and it's public, you might have to take down equipment and put it away so that the strangers are not coming across it. Or it might be at the end of the event, so tearing down, throwing garbage out, putting it in cars, things like that before everyone leaves the property. The tournament director should communicate everything to you ahead of time, so you shouldn't be expected to read minds and come up with new responsibilities. They should be clearly listening to you, what you're expected to do, and how you can do it. So one of the most basic, where can you get the scorecards? Is someone going to bring this to you at the field each time, or are you expected to go to headquarters and retrieve them before each game? How will you know when who your next team, your next head ref, snitch is? At tournaments I've organized, sometimes I will like to get a binder or a duotang and put some papers in it to give the field manager something to use. So this could be the day's schedule, a list of phone numbers of people to call if there's an issue, a map that shows where headquarters and washrooms and water is. Some tournament directors will give a radio to field managers, so you could quickly radio headquarters or other fields to ask questions. And other than that, you might also be able to text the tournament director or call other people to get help. How to call for help. So this is not just the tournament director, but also paramedics. Where can you go or flag down people to help with equipment or injuries of people on site? Will there be someone to relieve you for bathroom and lunch breaks? Knowing ahead of time if there's going to be designated times where someone's going to come and relieve you to go have a break, or if you are expected to take that on your own. So if you do not have someone coming to relieve you, they might have a preference of get the game started and then go once the game has started, because in the first 10 minutes usually things don't happen. Or no, don't leave at all when a game is happening. Go between games, so right after a game has finished, that's when you should go to the washroom or get a break. As well, they might have a lunch break or a lunch break area that you could get away from everyone, which can be great. But make sure you know, because you don't want a miscommunication of it looking like you're not at your field and the tournament director is expecting you to be there handling issues. So I put this picture here because a lot of Quidditch Canada regional and national events, a couple years ago, someone got these hats and a lot of the volunteers will wear them. And it's a great way of signaling to players and attendees who you can talk to if there is an issue. So the field managers, the tournament director, any official staff will be wearing these red beanies. And it's a quick way of knowing who people can go to, and they will either have answers or they will be able to radio someone or refer you to who will have answers for you. So make sure you take care of yourself. The day of, check the weather, dress accordingly, wear layers, especially if you're there before the light is up, and if you're there all day, the day can get really long and the weather can really vary a lot. Wear a hat, wear sunscreen, maybe bring some extra sunscreen to protect yourself. Bring a refillable water bottle, bring snacks, wear comfortable shoes, and bring extra things that you might need, like extra pens and pencils for scorekeepers. If it's going to rain, it can help to have an extra pair of socks in your bag, and then that way you can just switch into them and you're going to be more comfortable. So this also helps if you know how long you're volunteering for. So some field managers, you might be there the whole day before the tournament starts to when the tournament ends. Other options are they might have you for a half day, and you might also have someone working with you. So it's not uncommon to have another volunteer at your field that you can kind of work with. So one of you is the runner and one of you stays at the field to manage things. Other than that, you might have shorter shifts, so you don't have someone to help you, but at least you can see the end and you're not there all day. So before the game begins, this is a checklist of things that you're supposed to make sure. So first, make sure all referees are present. Like I said, the tournament director will likely give you a list or tell you who your referees are. Videographer, make sure they're present. Commentators, make sure they're present. Head referee, make sure they have their cards and whistle. Make sure the snitch referee has a whistle. Snitch shorts should be present. Video camera should have enough battery and storage space. Timekeeper has a clock, scorekeeper has a pen, and they should understand how to work any external scoreboards. Equipment check is completed for the team's first game of the day. Verify the brooms up cone 3 yards from the hoops and keeper zone cone is 6 yards from the hoops are in place. This obviously depends on what season this is, but you don't have to check this every game. This is more of a visual, especially if you notice that the field is not lined with paint. If it's just cones, if it looks like things have gotten out of place, the field will need to be remeasured and reconed. And it's not possible to measure and cone a field on your own, so call out for help or notify the correct person if things don't look like they're lined up correctly. Push for the game to start on time. This one, I know I'm personally kind of annoying with this, but it's very common to nag people and just constantly check in and remind. So the head referee might come and they might be there on schedule, but they might get sidetracked chatting with friends. So just check in every now and then to remind them the game's starting soon. It looks like we have the teams whenever you're ready. Things like that to just prompt them to make sure that the game starts on time. And this last one is a preference of a tournament director, so you want to check. They might not need you to do this, but it is good once the game starts to radio headquarters to say, Team A versus Team B on this pitch has started. So that way they can just know or check off to themselves, yes, pitch 3 is still on schedule, or, oh, they just got started. So pitch 3 is already running behind schedule. We should see what we can do to get them back on schedule. So all of this, you don't have to be necessarily responsible for making all of this happen, but check in, check in, check in. And if any of this looks like it's not happening, that's when you need to start making it happen or check in with your tournament director to get it back on track. So for example, making sure snitch shorts are present, you're not necessarily responsible for bringing snitch shorts, but if you're seeing that the snitch is here, doesn't have shorts, things are not going to be starting on time. So trying to anticipate what is going to cause the schedule to go off can really save you down the line. Equipment you may be expected to find. So having a general idea of these things ahead of time can save you time because someone is probably going to ask for it later in the day. First aid. So do you have a first aid kit at the sidelines, or is there a paramedic on site that you can refer people to? Where are they? How can you get their attention? Are you supposed to send people to get them? Things like that. Replacement hoops, brooms, and balls. If the hoops break, do you have duct tape that you can duct tape it together temporarily to get through the end of the game until you find other hoops? Or is there another set of hoops on the sideline that you can pull in if needed? And if you do, is that replacement set of hoops just for your field, or is there another field that it's the replacement hoops for them? So for example, if there are two fields, but only one set of replacement hoops, you're going to need to radio and let the tournament director know, because if the next field loses their hoops, we're going to have a problem because the replacement hoops are already used. So just keep those things in mind. Ball pump. Unfortunately, a lot of tournaments you need ball pumps all day because each team has a different preference for the balls. So really it should be up to the referees to make sure the balls are inflated, but often each team will come and put in their own personal opinion. So it's not uncommon to have a team come and say, oh my gosh, these balls are overinflated, and they'll deflate them a bit. And then the next game, another team will come and say, oh my gosh, these balls are horribly deflated, what is going on? And they'll need a ball pump. So we try to keep teams from messing around with equipment like that, but it can happen, so they will need a pump to get it back to a normal level. The schedule. So if you have a binder or duotang that the tournament director has provided for you, that's a great way to visually see what is the schedule, what teams are on what field, and what referees do we have at each field. So this is a way that you can kind of anticipate, okay, my next game is team A. I can see right now they're on pitch 2 playing, so when they're done, I'm going to need to flag them over and make sure they head to me, because if I see them all heading somewhere else, they might be late for my game. Also, people will ask you for it, so that's good. If you notice that a tournament director is sending you links to Google Drive files and saying this is the schedule, you might want to clarify with them, will there be a printout copy for me on site, or am I expected to access this on the field? Not everyone will have a phone that has data or Wi-Fi, and not everyone will have a phone that can display that kind of information, or it will, but then it will die quickly. So it's not unreasonable to say to your tournament director, you know, I won't be able to access this during the day. Can you get me a printout? Because I'm not going to have access to the internet to look up this information. Tape. So tape is really great for fixing a lot of things. It can also be good in some venues for putting lines on the field temporarily to help with measuring. And then field measuring tape, as well as the field dimensions in the units of your measuring tape, is for. So having a measuring tape and a screenshot from the rule book is great, but if you find that the rule book is in yards and your measuring tape is in feet, make sure you know how to convert it, or have those measurements already converted and written down for you to use. Gameplay videography. So not every tournament will have videography. That's totally okay. If it does though, these are some things to consider. It does matter if the videography is for instant replay. So this would be for a head referee to use to review a call, or if the videography is for putting on a YouTube channel, or for gameplay, or for the teams to review afterwards. And also another option is a live stream, though likely a live stream you would not be dealing with this would be someone else handling. But if there is videography, the volunteer who's put in to do the video might have questions for you as the field manager. So here's just some kind of tips that might come up to help you answer those questions. Fields need a camera, tripod, a memory card to be recorded, and when filming, it's important to follow the quaffle play. So you're focused on goals, you're not focused on beater play or your friends or the snitch. Even if they are more interesting, make sure you follow quaffle play. Try not to allow anyone to walk in front of the camera and try and keep spectators away from the camera. I know that's really hard, but if you start seeing people heading in that direction, just try and ask them to walk around. Keep the camera as steady as possible and stay zoomed out. A lot of these cameras are not high quality, so trying to zoom in and out will get blurry really quick, and then the footage is almost unusable. Keep conversations to a minimum. I'm definitely guilty of making chit chat by the camera. Avoid that. Often your private conversation is not adding anything to the video, and it can actually be a little gossipy and not needed. As well, even if you're making normal conversation that you would have at the side of a field, people who are watching it later don't want to hear you saying like, oh, that was so close, what were they doing? Just don't add that to the video if possible. Anticipate the movements of play. So whoever's recording, they're going to have to move the camera back and forth a lot, so make sure there's enough space around for you to move your arms. Start and stop recording during stoppages. This does depend on the tournament and the preferences, but oftentimes the person recording will be asked to stop if there's a stoppage. So if a player is injured and they have to go get paramedics, just to save battery life as well as the memory card. Do not delete any footage on the memory card. So even if you want to test that you know how the video camera works, that's totally fine, but don't delete it. So one is if there's missing footage later and you're looking at the video files on the memory card and it's very clear that there's a file 25 and there's a file 27, what happened to 26? You don't want to be accused of deleting something. And also a lot of the user interface on these cameras, it's very hard sometimes to see what is deleting a single file and what is deleting all files. So you don't want to be the person responsible for deleting all of the footage from that day. So just don't touch it, let communications or gameplay handle it after the fact. If the memory card is full, talk to your field manager, and as a field manager, you'll radio the headquarters, or you might already have an extra memory card or battery available to replace it when needed. So big part of the game is the scorekeeper and the timekeeper. So before the game starts, as the field manager, you should just check in with them and say, hey, have you filled this out before? Are there any questions? Try and do that before the game starts. Once the game starts, it can get very chaotic, and that's not the time to then explain how to fill in the scorecard. As well, when the game is happening, it can be very common for teams or captains to start yelling at the scorekeeper and timekeeper because they feel that the score is not right and they're very anxious about getting it right. So the scorekeeper might be on top of it, but they're busy recording a penalty or something and they just haven't updated the scoreboard that everyone can see. So keeping captains and teams away from the scorekeeper and then checking in with the scorekeeper after to say, you know, team B is concerned, they think the last goal didn't count. Have you recorded it? What's going on? Instead of letting just people bombard the scorekeeper, because if the scorekeeper gets sidetracked with a team and then they're explaining the score, they're not paying attention to the game, and that's when you're going to get an issue with recording the score and the game accurately. So a bit of a breakdown. This is a sample of the scorecard filled out. We have the Classic Raccoons Team A versus Awesome Crabs Team B. The field manager is not responsible for filling this out. You will receive this from the tournament director or headquarters already filled out with the teams and the roster, jersey numbers and names, and then the scorekeeper at the field will be filling it out. Though they might have questions, so this is just kind of a quick how to fill it out. So first thing at the top, we have the final score. This is 80 to 150, and the Awesome Crabs won, but they also caught the snitch, which is indicated by the little star mark. Underneath that, we have the score at 18 minutes. So what was the score before the snitch got involved, and then what was the regulation score? So what was the score before the snitch catch? If you go into overtime or double overtime, the rules on how to deal with this are in the rule book, but to indicate how the snitch is caught, if it's in overtime, you put the little top hat, and if the snitch is caught in double overtime, the exclamation mark is used. So just below this we have the timeout. The timeout, currently teams are allowed to request each a 1-minute timeout. So the team that requests it, you have to record what time the timeout was and on the side of the scorecard that indicates which team it is. Then at the bottom here, you can see you indicate the goals. So a couple things about this. You can see the first goal was scored by the Crabs at 12 seconds into the game. Player number 11, so this is Casey, did the assist, and Corinne, number 4, scored the goal. So the important thing, number 1, is which team got that goal. And then you want to record the player who scored the goal, and then if you did see who was the assist, so who passed the ball to the person who scored in a way that let them score, you can record that. If you do not know who assisted, you can leave that blank. If for some reason you don't know who scored the goal, try and pay a little more attention, but if not, just put an X. What's most important is which team got the goal. So put an X for who did it, but really try to write down the player number, because this can also be helped later if you just wrote down the goal and it was number 4 but the head referee says number 4 was beat. That can help you understand what they're saying. They might be trying to explain that number 4 was beat before the goal, so that goal is no good. So if you are not sure about a call, quickly flag down an assistant referee to get the head referee's attention before the game resumes, because you want to sort that out before the game goes on. The other thing is you want to record each of the goals here so that if at some point you are confused about what the score is, you can quickly add up the goals and confirm what the score is. So when the Raccoons finally get the score, even though it is their first score, it is recorded as goal number 3. So the first 2 goals were for Awesome Crabs. Number 3 is the first score for the Raccoons, so make sure it is recorded that way. And we're using the jersey numbers of the player. So as the field manager, and you can kind of work with the scorekeepers for this, but if you notice that someone is scoring goals or being recorded as assists and they are not on the roster, so let's say someone is recording player 99, there's no player 99 on this roster. So you don't necessarily stop the game, but you should very quickly loop in the tournament director to check what's going on. So there's a couple things that could happen. If something's gone wrong with a jersey and they're using a replacement jersey, they should have come and talked to you before just to record it correctly. But it is possible that someone is playing who's been removed from the scorecard. So depending on when this is filled out, the player might have been scratched out. So like under Raccoons, you can see number 17, Lena, is crossed out. So this person could have been crossed out because they did not sign in. Maybe they've been suspended. Maybe they've had red cards and they're being banned from later games. There's all sorts of things. It's not necessarily public knowledge, but that person cannot be playing. So if you believe that number 17, Lena, is playing right now, you need to get the tournament director involved right away, and they will stop the game. They will deal with that. That's not up to you. You're just there to inform them. Similarly, maybe it was just a misunderstanding, so it's not actually an issue, but you let the tournament director deal with that. If a team comes to you and they try and get someone who was crossed out or not included on the roster added, that needs to go through the tournament director. So as the field manager, it's not up to you to say, yeah, I know Lena, she's my friend, we're all cool, she gets to play. No, you let the tournament director deal with that, because we can't have people playing for a number of reasons if they're not allowed to. So at the bottom of the sheet, we have officials and captains and the scorekeeper and timekeeper. So I want people to fill out their name, clearly print it so it can be read. No loopy signatures. This is for a couple reasons. Referees, this determines if you are getting paid. And then also if there's an issue later, either through membership or gameplay, and we need another person's side of the story. So we're trying to determine if there was an issue with players and their conduct, or if the final score we believe was recorded wrong. We might need to talk to individuals who were involved in it. So clearly printing the names helps us know who was there and saw what happened. On the back at the top, there are penalties. So you're recording the jersey number, the offense, the time it happened, and if they got a blue, yellow, or red card. Pay attention to if the same player is getting 2 yellow cards, because that is an automatic red. But also just try and really listen when the head referee is calling and quickly flag an assistant referee if you did not hear it or you're not quite sure. In the middle, there is information on the snitch. So if the scorekeeper doesn't remember what time the snitch comes out or anything like that, it's all written there, which is great. And then at the bottom of the back, there's the head referee review and snitch runner review. This is optional. They do not have to fill this out. We encourage them to because it helps us with planning future events and understanding the referees and who needs help where. But that's an optional thing for captains to fill out. So as the field manager, it's not your job to fill this out. However, it's very likely that you will get questions and may have to assist a scorekeeper in understanding how to fill this out. And especially if they get overwhelmed, either with the crowd or captains yelling at them that something is wrong. If the scorecard gets not filled out, that's going to prevent the game from being official. So you want to just step in and help out if there's any questions and try and be aware of if something is going wrong. So that is everything. A field manager, it's a really important job. You're busy for a lot of the day. You get to see a lot of games, but the truth is if you do your job well, most people won't really realize what you're doing. Most people are focused on the games that are happening and their own team and how they're doing. They're not really paying attention to all the people who are making the day happen. So just a big thank you from myself and all of us. Field managers are a really important job for tournaments and keeping them on schedule and keeping things going well. So if you follow all this, it should help out with your day. But if there's anything you feel that we missed, let us know and we might revise this or come up with another guide. Thank you.